Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to speak to you about Facebook. Maybe you yourselves have a Facebook account. It seems that many people nowadays have one. I have my own account myself, I have my own profile and I use it regularly. But there are many people in the world who are happy not to use Facebook. They're happy not to join this huge mass of people who have made their own profile on this social network. There are indeed some that say that Facebook is harmful. As a matter of fact, I have one friend who says that he will never join Facebook. And recently I read an article which actually proved him right. I read a study which shows the negative effects that Facebook can have on people. I read about how happiness in one's life can be reduced as a result of this social network. But what exactly does this study say? Let's look at the details. Well, it was conducted by researchers at two different universities, at the University of Michigan and the University of Leuven in Belgium, and the conclusions are of great concern to us all, I think. These conclusions, the findings that have been shown, are in some ways not actually new. We have already seen many different studies on Facebook that have turned up very negative and worrying results. A number of studies on the social network have shown that Facebook can create envy, social tension, isolation, and even depression among its users. But up until today, there had been no study that had been carried out over a long period. All of the previous studies had been carried out over very short periods of time, and therefore did not allow a true analysis of how people's emotions evolved as a Facebook user. This new study, on the other hand, analyzes emotions over an extended period. Previous studies did not allow us to see whether Facebook caused depression or whether the opposite was true, whether depressed people were the ones who turned towards Facebook. This study was conducted with a sample of 82 volunteers who were aged between 17 and 22. So as you can imagine, most of them are probably university students or people finishing their studies at secondary school. Each volunteer gave their consent for their behaviour to be followed, both their behaviour on Facebook, and they also provided information on their behaviour in real life. The study was carried out over a period of 2 weeks. The users had to send SMS messages in order to provide information on what they were doing each day in their real lives. These text messages were sent 5 times a day by each user. They had to say whether they had met up with other people, whether they had gone for a coffee with someone, or whether they had had a long conversation with a friend over the phone, for example. This allowed the researchers to gain a perspective of how the individuals behaved in their real social lives. This was then compared with information which was gathered from their Facebook accounts and the monitoring of their use of their account. All of this information was brought together, gathered and analysed. People, therefore, the participants in this study had to say how they felt at different times of the day. And of course this is important because we all know that our mood changes as the day wears on. It was found that those who use Facebook more regularly and for longer periods were more unsatisfied with their own lives. The conclusions of this study left no space for doubt. They were very conclusive indeed. In addition to the information I've already mentioned that the users had to provide, they also had to give a grade on the happiness in their lives, both before the study was carried out and afterwards. In this way, the researchers could analyse the changes in one's life over a long period of time, over the period of 2 weeks of the study. And as a matter of fact, it was seen that happiness was reduced among all users by the end of the study. So not only were the users found to be unhappier over one day as their mood changed, but it was also found that over the full 2-week period of the study, Facebook users became unhappier as a result of their use of the social network. It was also found, to no surprise, that the more an individual socialized in real life, the happier they would be. The conclusions were very clear in pointing out that the more one carries out face-to-face socializing, the more one feels happier with their own life. What is also interesting in the findings was that there was no real distinction between the sex of the participants. There was no difference between whether Facebook users were male or female. The same findings came up. Nor was there a difference in terms of the number of friends each Facebook user had. Regardless of whether one had 1,000 friends or 50 friends, it was found in both cases that the user was unhappier the more they used Facebook. Another upshot of the study was that if somebody was depressed before they took part in the study, they were even more depressed if they used Facebook regularly following the study. And if somebody was happy before the study, then they were found to be unhappier afterwards. Therefore, the conclusions are very clear, and this study is very damning for the millions and millions of Facebook users that exist around the world. So why is it that there's this difference between socializing on Facebook and socializing in real life? Well, this study in particular that I've mentioned does not provide clear conclusions. It doesn't provide clear explanations on this issue. So in order to find out an answer, I found I had to look at other studies. I had to look elsewhere. I looked at one study which was presented at a conference in February 2013. This study used a sample of 164 individuals who were regular users of Facebook. Most of them were in their early 20s, like in the previous study. The conclusions were that the emotions most commonly felt when somebody uses Facebook are those related to envy. Now, I'm sure this has happened to you. You may well have experienced this yourselves. You may have found that when you log on to Facebook, you see a long list of news feeds of photos from all of your different friends who are maybe climbing mountains around the world, who have just graduated with a new qualification or have gained a new degree, or maybe they've travelled to the other side of the world. And all of this, of course, creates envy to the person who sees it. You feel that you haven't achieved as much as others. You feel inferior because others are better than you. Also, when you log on to Facebook, you may find a number of status updates that people have just posted. They may quote great philosophers or famous people from history. And all of these wonderful sayings and epithets may make you feel that you're not quite up to the mark. You're not quite as intelligent, or you don't come up with snappy quotes like others do. And so once again, you feel envy, or you feel as though you're inferior to others. So we have seen the results of two different studies, and both paint quite a bleak picture in terms of the use of Facebook. But what I find interesting is that in both studies, younger people were the ones who were part of the samples. Older people were not really considered. People who are in their 40s and 50s, for example, are quite often users of Facebook. I know a number of people in that age range myself who use Facebook. So it could be interesting to consider these results from, it will be interesting to carry out a study among older users of Facebook. Maybe because of the fact that they are more mature, we may find that the emotions they feel are not the same. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we could say that it is best not to use Facebook at all. Well, I personally don't consider giving up my Facebook use. I don't think I'll delete my profile as a result of what I read, but I definitely will change my behaviour online. I'm sure I will reduce my Facebook use having read this information that I came across. I believe that rather than giving up Facebook entirely, we should show moderation with this social network. And after all, that's the case with everything. We should be able to set aside envy when we are with friends, when we learn about what other people are up to. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have learned a great deal from this speech, because I certainly have learned a lot from the reading I did on Facebook. Thank you.